Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Hey guys, welcome to our Tuesday Night Podcast. We are live tonight. We have a special guest, Orlando Minor. He has a YouTube channel. He's been in the business for a while. And pre-2008 crash. So that, I talked to a lot of people in the industry and they all have opinions. And they all want to give you their opinion. And then when you ask them how long they've been in business, they say something like 4 years, 5 years. So guys, we welcome you to our show. Tonight, we're going to talk about whether you should be buying real estate at all. I mean, should you even worry about it right now? I mean, you're buying, you've seen lots of headlines, you've watched our channel or somebody else's channel, and everybody's saying, well, maybe not everybody. Some people are saying no crash, no price reductions coming, prices never go down. We've had a couple people that even claim to be experts in the business that don't believe that we're going to see a price decline. And we're seeing it. We're watching it nationwide. Guys, thanks for joining in. It's a live show. Feel free to comment. I'm also greeted. We'll let Melissa say hello here. But Orlando, without further ado, man, let's hear it. Let's hear it, brother. How are you? And thanks for joining us. And tell everybody who you are.
Hey, Todd, I appreciate you, first of all, for letting me come onto the show and give me your platform. But yeah, my name is Orlando Minor. I've been doing commercial lending for, like 15, 16 years. I've been an investor for about 14, 15 years of that time. So I've been in the industry for a long time, dealing with this and seeing the crash in '08 and then kind of seeing this full cycle that we're coming around right now to see exactly what's going to happen in this market.
I've been serving this business in one way or another since 1989, man. So, I've seen this a couple times. I've taken my licks a couple times and I'm going, here we go again. It's like, at what point when I'm shaving in the morning, do you think it's going to stop? And then all of a sudden it's just boom. It's like the faucet's turned off and the market changes. But anyway, Melissa, welcome to our show. You are
Hi, everyone.
Frequently on. Melissa, tell everybody what you do and,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I've been Todd's assistant now for almost 5 years. We're just walked into year 5. I'm licensed and every day it's something new. And we are super grateful, Orlando, to have you with us this evening. I know that we've been watching your channel and you are just all the way. Keep on going up. And it's fantastic. Absolutely. It's fantastic to watch. It's super exciting. And we are definitely a fan of yours. So we're happy that you're with us and just learning about real estate every single day and seeing what happens. And absolutely, we're talking about, should people be buying right now? That is the question. Right. So hopefully we're going to get some insight.
Yeah. So we'll dive in. Orlando, I mean, I've watched your videos. I'm subscribed to your channel. And guys, if you haven't already done so, check Orlando out. We'll make sure his link's in the show notes, but he's easy to find. Just Google, or you can see his website, or just go to YouTube, type in Orlando Minor and subscribe to his channel. But Orlando, you and I, we kind of share some of the same sentiments on the market. Right. I'm in the trenches every single day. We're watching it happen. We've seen this shift from the seller's market. Some people want to say we're being neutralized now, more of a neutralized market, which is something that kind of moves over then to more of a buyer's market, we believe. But we're seeing it now. I mean, people are not overpaying in most markets, and they're getting deals. But the question, we're going to dive into it, should people be buying? What should they be looking for? How do they gauge a good deal? Guys, this is going to be something that we talk about tonight. But Orlando, you say that pretty much the same thing as I say on this channel. We are experiencing a real estate market crash. Can you kind of give your opinion on that?
Yeah. So my opinion is that we have inflation going up. We have things costing more and more and more each and every day. We see that the Fed is continuing to raise rates. It's keeping people out of the market. People can't afford the homes because they're unaffordable, so it's dampening the demand. So what happens during a recession? What happens when the demand is down? Well, a crash is going to happen. The value of homes will come down. And I've been saying this on my channel for months and months and months and months and months. And I've been saying, look, if rates continue to go up, prices have to come down. And now we're starting to see on Zillow, Redfin, all these other places that you're starting to see price cuts, and it's a normal occurrence. You're starting to see homes be on the market for longer. Now you can ask the seller for some type of concessions, whereas 6 months ago you couldn't do that at all.
Mhm.
Yeah, explain concessions. I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
know what it is, but for our
right.
audience.
So concessions are normally you go to the seller and you get some type of, let's say you ask for a $2,500 closing cost. They're going to pay for your closing costs. Or let's say you're going to ask them to give you money because to replace the carpet inside the home or something like that. Well, 6 months ago, a year ago, if you came to the table and you asked for any of that, your contract was thrown out. You won't even get through the door. The realtor probably wouldn't even show your contract. But now we're starting to see that those deals are getting accepted. Those deals are getting accepted because now the demand is down. What are sellers doing now? Sellers are saying to themselves, well, this may be the best deal that I might get, so I might as well take this one.
Yeah, we're experiencing it. I mean, we have, several deals over the last couple months where, we would not have tolerated as a seller, they would not have
Right.
tolerated some of these requests. And the big thing that we're seeing right now is delay in settlement dates. We have a settlement date, which doesn't seem to mean anything. Before, if we said we were going to settle on September 1, everybody had pressure on them because there were backup contracts. Everybody, and chances are the backup may have even been more, or a better deal than what they're under contract for. And, if there was any reason, so lenders were all working together to make sure, hey, we've got to close it by September 1st on time. Now we're seeing we're not going to close by September 1st. We need an extension. And now we're saying, well, we're not going to close by September 7th. We need an extension. And, where these are just one of the examples of things that 6 months ago was unheard of. But yeah, you're right. I mean, cash back, seller help, something that we haven't seen in a while. The acceptance of FHA contracts, or financing, something that we haven't seen buyers accept in a while, or very few. Where it was mostly cash deals or conventional deals, repairing things, getting either a credit for a repair or the sellers fixing things that 6 months ago they would have never fixed, or even accepting that lower offer because now the seller may have to move and it's the only offer that they've had in hand, and their house may be have been on the market for 45 or 60 days with at least one price reduction. So guys, we are seeing it. Orlando, there is a little less controversy in the comments now on, them denying that we'll ever see price reductions or that it will ever be a buyer's market. We're seeing very few of those now, and we're seeing more of people agreeing with us. I said it back in April. You said it months ago, that the buyer's market's coming. The big question is, how low will it go? And I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, right? But I guess the question that I have for you, because I've seen some things on your channel and, where you're saying that, I think one of them said 40%, or maybe there's some kind of a statement that it could be more than that, or that we could be looking at an 08 type of crisis in housing, and people are going, no way, we're in a different market. They have equity that they never had before. Do you feel we will see a 2008 type of pricing crash in real estate?
Yeah, my view on this is that it's so hard to actually say, yes, we for sure are going to see a 2008 crash, right? But what I try to really focus on is to tell individuals to really, really, really look at your local market. Really study what's happening in your local market. Look at what's happening in the economy when it comes to the interest rate hikes. Look what's happening with job growth and these numbers when you look at it, and some of the job growth that is being, said by the government. A lot of that job growth is individuals working 2 to 3 jobs. We know income has stayed the same and it's not growing, but things are going up, up, and up. So if you see all of those things happening, then you have to try to figure out what is the price that's best for you to get into your home, right? Trying to time this market is trying to catch a falling knife. You have to figure out, okay, in my market, there was houses that were being $100,000 overpriced. Where are they right now? Are they in your price range? Are they not in your price range? Are they still at your price range? How do you look at the interest rates when you put that into the price reductions? Is it still out of your price range monthly? Everybody's situation is different. So it's very hard to say, hey, wait until this month on this day. This is when the housing crash is going to happen. I think that's where the message gets confused. We can only look at the data and kind of give our opinions of exactly when that's going to happen. But giving an exact date and saying this for sure is going to happen, I can't do that.
Do you think things are going to get much worse than where they are right now?
Oh, yes, for sure. For sure. 100% they will. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I really do believe that. I mean, for example, we have the holiday season coming up. We know that if you look at what Biden did as far as the student loans, those were kicked down the road. Those payments won't start until the beginning of next year, I mean. And so once all of these things that normally people will have to pay, loans, and everything else, all of that stuff kicks in. What are people's savings going to be then? What will be people's monthly saving? People are living paycheck to paycheck, normally don't have that much money in savings. This is the most amount of money most Americans have had in their savings account in a very, very long time. So once that dries up, I believe we will start to see things coming into motion. And I really want to stay particularly focused on what's going to happen during this holiday season. Are people going to have enough money to do exactly? Are we going to see Black Friday sales? Black Friday sales are the biggest that they ever been. Are we going to see Black Friday sales are down?
Mm-hmm. I do want to say something really quick. We're talking about the concessions and the price reductions. Mm-hmm. The feeling of the sellers, they're nervous. We can see it, we can feel it, and they want to make sure that I think it's so important that we stress about pricing correctly, pricing properly, because they don't want to have a price reduction. They're not going to want to have the concessions. And I think that is why they're so nervous, is because it's so, you don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I agree.
What factors, Orlando, do you think? So you say, and I agree with you. I think things are going to get a lot worse. I think that this is just, we haven't even woke up yet from the printing of stimulus. I think that's a conversation in itself. How do we get the Fed balance sheet into any type of shape at all, and without crashing this economy? I mean, they're talking about the highest inflation that we've had in decades, dating back to the 70s. And when we're looking at that and we're trying to bring things into check, interest rates have gone up. I think they're going to be over 7% by the beginning of the year. Personally, people say no way. That's not even that bad. Believe me, it wasn't that long ago we had 7.5% interest rates. And you're right. This is going to put more downward pressure on housing and the prices of housing. And, but what do you feel will be some of the economic. I mean, I know you mentioned holiday shopping, but even getting into more of the necessities of life, what do you think will be some of the factors that cause price reductions other than, shopping? I mean, high interest rates. Do you think we're going to continue to see? Do you think we'll see stagflation? Do you think we're going to continue to see which is a word that no one really wants to talk about right now?
Yeah, I think there's a multitude of things. And first, I want to say, yes, I do think interest rates are going to continue on. We have the Fed saying that 2 more interest rates. They're saying that they're going to, raise those
Hikes.
75 basis points, right? So who knows where that's going to land the interest rates, right? We just know they're going to go higher. At least in my opinion, they're going to go higher. And then we have things associated with directly with housing. Like you have taxes, we have things that people do to fill up their homes, labor to put new flooring in your house, HVAC systems. All this stuff is just super, super, super high. And most people cannot afford it. Most people can only afford the 3.5% down. They cannot afford all of this extra stuff that's going to cost double, triple than it was a year ago. And when you add all of those factors into it, along with it being high interest rates, can anybody really afford a home? Or what's worse than that is people buy the homes and then realize they can't afford it after all of these expenses pile on top of them, which is foreclosure city right there. So there's a lot of multitudes that could really cause this, but I really like to focus in on those core things that I know homeowners will have an issue with, and that's the increased cost of everything. And that includes the mortgage, insurance. I don't know about you, but on my home in particularly, it went up 2 times. 2 times. It went up to double what it was previously from a year ago. And that's because it is costing more to build a home than it did a year ago. Wood, copper, all the materials cost more.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that probably the number one thing that we are going to be faced with as homeowners, which will be something that I think will cause more deterioration over the next year or two, is going to be the fact that, and look, we're not trying to be doom and gloom here, right? But I mean, someone has to wake this thing up, right? Somebody has to be the one to say, look, guys, we haven't seen the beginning of this yet. When we're talking about, they're saying that building materials are going to continue to rise. Businesses are getting hit with more costs, more, to run a business, more regulations. They're going to raise the prices of building materials. Along with that, labor demands. We have a lack of skilled labor in this industry. I mean, we've been pushing our kids to technology, right? Get a job doing anything else but working with your hands, right? Don't go out and dig a hole for a living, right? Is what we is what we've been saying, right? Maybe not you and me, but I'm saying in general. So now we have, an unskilled labor force. Okay, everything we do. I needed a repair on a refrigerator. The repairman's been to my house twice. They ordered the wrong part the first time. I mean, this is easy, simple stuff, man. They ordered the wrong part. I couldn't get it direct. I'd have fixed it myself, right? And now here we are, right? The ridiculous price of doing this, the cost of of the service charge, the materials. So over the next couple of years, we've been dealing with sellers not fixing anything, right? Last 2 years, they haven't had to fix anything. Well, what does that mean for the people that bought at the highest prices that we've seen, and now heating and air systems are going? Now roofs need to be replaced. So I think personally, you hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest things that we're going to see that no one's talking about right now is the fact, the pressure that, and you said it right before you mentioned the cost of things. You said savings is down.
Right.
So now everybody's used all their cash to compete in the market to buy. They needed to put more money down, overpay, right? Because houses weren't appraising in a lot of cases. So they were bringing the cash to the table. Now they don't have the cash. I think that's a wave that we haven't considered at large this next several years of just that in itself.
Mm-hmm. We do have a question from Real Estate Mindset. Hi, Travis. Thank you so much.
Hey,
we love
Good
Travis.
to see you. During the 2008 Great Recession, buying opportunities, depending on the metro area, was between 2 to 4 years. Do you think this time around buying opportunities will be short-lived in comparison?
Orlando, what do you say?
I think, I don't know. I think that they will be short-lived, and this is the reason why I think this would be short-lived, is because I am seeing you're seeing the Fed and the government jump in to save the day at every given point. They're not really trying to let the market do what the market does. They're trying to really just keep it propped up. So I can imagine something happening with the market, and the stock market's going down, and the economy is going down, and values are going down, and the government trying to figure out a way to prop things back up. If you've listened to the Fed has said that we're going to try to fight inflation, and they want to get inflation back down, but they want to get rates back to where they were. That's what they want. And to be honest with you, the rates being as low as they are, that's great. Really, it really is. But at a certain point, rates do have to go up. And the Fed is continuing to want to keep the rates low. So I can see them, that period being short because of government intervention.
I think that, I kind of feel that we will probably see a decline in home ownership. So I don't know, I kind of, if I had to, really, and I've thought about this a lot, and, where do we go from here kind of thing? We have sellers that are in mortgages, that bought prior to the house prices going crazy.
Oh, wow.
And, they've gained a lot of equity, yes, but they also refinanced. I mean, we had lenders that, basically expanded their business based on refinance, taking all of these, 4 and 5% and rolling them into 2 3/4 or 3% mortgages. I don't believe that we'll see that maybe another 100 years before we would see where interest rates go to where they were the lowest in 100 years. So I think that we're going to see multi-generational housing. I think that we'll see where people are moving back home. Mom and dad will be building accessory dwelling units in their houses and living in them, maybe the garage, maybe, part of the house. And that a lot of these kids will become children, will be coming home and, to live in the house and take it over. I see that, we have a lot of different agendas with Wall Street buying up our houses, especially our affordable housing. We talk about adding affordable housing. If you go on and look at the Biden-Harris housing plan, and I encourage everybody to do that. If you just Google search Biden-Harris housing plan, you will see there are a couple things that are outlined in there. And I mean, their intentions are to try to make affordable housing. And I think that is always, that's been the red tape. Development cost so much money to do. Land value. You think the money's in the land, the farmer. It's not. The money is in the regulations, the hoops that you have to jump through, and the lobbyists that are, causing things like, hey, you must put sprinkler systems in houses and For houses that are in rural areas, they need expensive bladder tanks, holding tanks. I mean, people don't even realize what the cost of building is. The infrastructure from stormwater runoff, all the green initiatives. I mean, look, I'm not saying that it's not great to be green. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, this is not a political platform. But what I'm saying is a lot of people don't understand the costs that go into it. So when people say we want affordable housing, what does that mean? What is an affordable house? So, and I think the government solution is going to be, at least here in Maryland, a lot of the proposed legislation is to have what is called accessory dwelling units, and allowing people to have what was once known as an in-law suite, where a blood relative could live with you with a separate kitchen, separate entrance, you could build these things so long as that they were blood relatives. I think now we're getting into where these accessory dwelling units will be permitted so long as the original owner is a primary resident in that home, and they'll be able to rent it out. I think that's going to be the solution to what ends up being affordable housing, not people buying houses.
Right.
Mm-hmm. How do you both feel about, I'm going to bring in another question here, Luis Marcos, should I wait to buy an investment property? What do you think about that with the timing right now?
Orlando,
Okay.
you both do this and have done this, right? This is a loaded question, man.
Right, it is. So I've purchased investment properties, multiple this year. But what I tell individuals when it comes to investment properties is that it's all about what the cash flow of the investment property is right now. Right. I don't try to price deals in the future. I don't try to look at, the past. I'm looking at what does it cash flow now. And if it makes sense, if the numbers make sense now, then I purchase it. Right. But it has to make sense with the numbers now. Now, when it comes to trying to figure out if it's, going to be worth more, worth less, it really depends on what type of property you're trying to look at. If you're looking at commercial, it's kind of the cash flow is tied to the value. So it's kind of hard to kind of defeat that type of area. But when it comes to duplexes and whatnot, you can really get ate alive on the value portion of it, but it still does not beat the because you have a mortgage and you have the cash flow. So once again, the number one rule I just follow is if the numbers make sense and it cash flows, then I don't see why you shouldn't buy it.
Now, my opinion differs slightly on
Right.
this, and I always buy future cash flow, not necessarily. It needs to cash flow today, but it also there has to be some kind of a promise that the cash flow is going to increase. Kind of today is my minimum standard, but I need to know that there is an ability for me to get more from it, whether that's a piece of property that I can break off additional lots, increase the number of units. Maybe it's a 2-unit dwelling and it could be a legal 3-unit dwelling. Maybe I can, so like Orlando's saying, the cash flow has to work now. But I'm looking at personally, when I do something like that, I want to know what can I increase almost as a given right, not a wing and a prayer. So what I'm looking for is that. The one thing I do want to say, though, and I want to caution anybody thinking about investment properties, because a single family house is worth more vacant than it is occupied. And what I mean by that is, and when people get foreclosed upon, this is a perfect example of that. You have a squatter in the house. Nobody wants to buy a house like that. They've got to evict a tenant. But what I mean is that if you have a single family house and it's empty, you can sell it to someone who wants to live there as a primary resident, and they have no problem in giving you a profit for that in most cases. As long as it's a good deal, they can allow you to increase with your appreciation. When you get into multifamily housing, and that's not really what this show is about, but just quickly, you get into multifamily housing, what happens is if you go to sell that, usually you want to own it forever. And if you go to sell it, you want to have some kind of ability to continue with like a 1031, which kind of protects your profits, rolls it into the next property, a larger one. But what happens when you sell, let's say you buy a multifamily dwelling and you need to sell that. Maybe it's 2 units, maybe it's 3. Your audience is another investor who wants you to make absolutely nothing. In fact, they'll be happy if you lose money because they want to make all the money. So, I get a lot of people that are always asking, how do I get into this? How do I become a landlord? How do I rent? What should I buy? And I always tell people, I ask them, how long do you want to keep the asset? If you're thinking 3 to 5 years, buy a single family house. If you're going to keep it forever, you're looking for a long-term play.
Right.
Then we'll get into multifamily. But as far as answering the question, I think right now, the only way I would buy a multifamily property or an investment property is if tomorrow I can make it different. And maybe that tomorrow is 6 months or a year from now.
Maybe.
But I'm looking for higher and best use.
Right.
Higher and best use. I'm looking for better zoning that the agent's not, realizing. Maybe it has a zoning that allows for 2-unit dwelling and it's only 1 right now. The agent doesn't know. Maybe it could be a business. Maybe it could be something else. Maybe it could be a dog kennel or a daycare. I'm looking for highest and best.
How about with new construction? We've got Anthony P. Is there a cap on how many points a builder can buy down a rate?
Orlando, you're the finance guy. What do you say?
No, there isn't a cap. It's just really when it comes to the financing game, it's really about what the borrower will take and what you will take. If as a lender, if a borrower is willing to pay 7 points, then you can charge it because they have to sign on the dotted line. You're disclosing everything to them saying, this is exactly what I'm going to charge you. And there is no cap. It's just, I have to disclose it to you. And so long I disclose it to you and you agree with it, then we have a deal. So no.
And then go ahead. Did you want to say something, Todd?
No, go ahead. We'll take a couple
sure.
questions and then we're going to go to the big question, whether people should buy now. That's going to be that's what everybody wants to hear.
We've got Bobby Zeus. I'm in North Carolina. I see that prices starting going down by 4K or even 10K. However, homes are still overpriced compared to other places. My question is, how do you explain that?
Well, you want me to go ahead and go for it?
Sure.
Okay. So my explanation is they were the reason why you're seeing it, they're overpriced because they were just overpriced to begin with. I mean, if you have a home that is $100,000 overpriced and you see the price go down by $10,000, it's still overpriced by $90,000. So that's the reason why. And you have to understand that sellers are going to test the market. They're not going to just give away the whole $100,000. They're going to see what they can take. First, it gets dropped by 10, then 20, and then 30. They're just going to take it down tier by tier. They're not going to just give away the farm and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to cut this by 150,000. They're not at that point yet. But they will be at some point if the property continues to stay on the market and demand keeps going down.
Orlando, how do you know if a home is overpriced by 100,000?
Well, let's talk about that. So when it comes to prices, well, first of all, you have to look at the comps. And now what we're starting to see is if someone bought their home for, I don't know, $400,000, right? And or let's make this more interesting. Let's say it was $300,000. That was the listed price. And then someone overpaid for $100,000 over that. What we're starting to see now is you go ahead and you buy that $400,000, but John down the street now is getting a house for $350,000, right? Your next door neighbor after that is buying a house for $320,000. And we're starting to see that that the actual number is getting higher, higher, and higher. So if you eventually in 6 months, you start seeing your neighbors buying a home for $300,000, $280,000, whatever that price may be, then right then and there, I would think that it's overpriced. Dropping that much in 6 months, yeah, you overpaid. And that's what's happening.
one of the things that arguments that I've had about home appraisals, right? And I've
me
had a
too.
couple appraisers on the show, man. And I tell you what, we've gone head to head. I've gone straight on for these appraiser guys because I don't get the opportunity. I don't have the opportunity to do it when they're, appraising a house that we're selling, or that we have a buyer, that, is getting an appraisal that doesn't meet their financing.
Right.
And, so, you think about rebuttals to appraisers, but, besides that, they've been under fire, right? Because everybody was saying, you need to raise your appraised value because this is what the people are willing to pay. And you guys don't know what you're doing. And the appraisers are like, and I even had one appraiser tell me that he doesn't even look at the outlier. So if we have, a neighborhood that sells for 450, and then all of a sudden somebody's willing to pay 550 for a house, 100,000 more, he doesn't even count the fact, that an outlier closed at 540, one of those in the neighborhood. So he doesn't look at that comp. He goes back to the 450. But anyway, that is the question. How do you know that it's overpriced? And I think that, one of the guides, one of the rule of thumb that what you're going to have to play by right now as a buyer is you're going to have to decide, are you willing to wait? Are you willing to wait? You still may look for the house that is, in your opinion, overpriced, and you may, take a shot at them, but are you willing to wait if they say no? And are you willing to track that house? And I think that is the big question, because there is another fatigue I see coming. There was a buyer fatigue where you were putting offers in and you were getting beat out. So then you were getting tired of writing offers, and your agent was getting tired of writing offers. Now the question is, are you willing to go at fatigue with getting your price? Instead of coming up to the price and losing, are you willing to go down in price and still lose? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Number one, if you're going to try and buy now. Number two, you need to communicate with your agent and make sure you have an agent that's not going to kick you to the curb. When you're constantly coming in saying the house is overpriced and I want to offer them less. I want to buy now, but I want to offer them less. I want to buy now. You have to interview that agent. Is that something that you guys are that you're willing to do with me? And I think that is going to be, what do you think of that, Orlando? You think that's a good starting approach, or what are you telling people to do? Number one, do you think that they should buy now?
Yeah, I don't think people should buy now. I think the best approach is to, and I'm going to use this lightly, is to sit on the sidelines. And what I mean by sit on the sidelines is, I don't mean sit on the sidelines and do nothing. I mean sit on the sidelines and research, continue to look at your market, continue to see what price drops are happening, and stay renting, saving your money, so that when you're ready to buy, when you're ready to jump into this market, you will have everything together. You will know exactly what location, you know exactly what happened with this house, where they came down the front, so that when you do make your offers, that you can make your offers smartly, because you have been watching the market like a hawk. And so, no, I don't think you should buy right now, and sitting on the sidelines by doing what I just said. That's my suggestion.
So are you saying that you don't think they can get a good deal right now?
No, I'm not saying that, because this is the deal. You don't know everyone's situation, right? You may run into somebody who has to sell, right? Maybe they're moving, maybe they got a new job somewhere, or whatever. Maybe they're downsizing, right? But regardless of that, you won't be able to find those things if you're not looking, if you're not paying attention to your market. You won't just magically get a home just fall in your lap. You have to continue to keep an eye on the market and do your research. So no, I'm not saying that you can't get a deal today. What I'm saying is this: if you have to buy right now, and you had to pull the trigger today and you had to decide, do I sign a lease and continue renting? Or do I try to buy a house that I don't know what's actually going to happen with the market? I would tell that individual, go ahead and sign that lease and come back next year, but continue to do your research that you've been doing, and come back with the ammunition you need to get the home that you want.
All right, so let me keep challenging you a little bit, okay?
Okay.
You don't mind, do you?
No, not at all.
All right. Okay. I mean, I can't have you disconnected on me. You know what I mean? I can't have you be like,
Yeah.
I mean, then I'll be on the show by myself, right?
Oh, God.
Right.
But you just said that the buying opportunity would be short-lived.
Correct. I'm saying the buying opportunity would be short-lived during the time. So Todd, Travis asked a question and I'm just make sure that the question was correct, is that he's asking, when the crash actually happens, will it be short-lived, right? And when I say short-lived, do I mean short-lived 2 months? Do I mean short-lived, 1 month? No, I think it's going to be a year and a half. Do I think it's going to be 2 to 4 years? I'm not sure. And the answer that I gave to that question is determined on if the government steps in. So if the government doesn't step in, then it may be a longer opportunity. I'm just going by what the current administration of the government is doing now. And we've seen them prop up the economy in every which way that they possibly can. So my viewpoint is that they're going to continue to do that because they've been doing it in the past for the last 3 years. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, and look, these are the things that, look, this is what we come under fire at every day. When do we buy? When do we buy? When do we buy? I mean, and to kind of go on against the grain, I think that you can find a buying opportunity right now. Mm-hmm. I just think you have to look for it. I think you have to dig deep for it. I would say, if to my buyers, I'm saying, look, if there's an opportunity for you to go month to month in your rental, mm-hmm. Don't sign the lease. If you want to buy a house, I think that, by the springtime, we're going to see what's going on, right? I think that there are opportunities. I'm seeing it. I'm watching it happen. There are ways to get deals on houses, and they're not deceptive ways either. They're just flat out, it's business, it's a business transaction. It's negotiation. You have to have strength in an agent. You have to have an agent. We get a lot of people who are like, oh, agents, they're not worth anything. It's so not true. There's so many great agents out there. They are needed. And you need to find one. You need to rely on them because they're going to help you to, number one, see what you're looking for, understand, what is the most important thing about what you're buying? Is it the location? I just had somebody today say, wow, up in Cumberland, which if you guys don't know Maryland, Cumberland is like, you better work remote and you better hope that you have internet service. And if you live in Cumberland, I'm not picking on you, but it's remote, right? Compared to Baltimore. And they're saying, man, I can't believe you can get a single family house for under $100,000. Well, you have to know what you want, right? What are you looking for? Because sometimes people want an oceanfront property that may be hard to get in any market, right? So number one, you have to know, what is it that's important to you? What are you looking for in a property? And then you got to set your focus in, and you got to dial in, But I also believe that if you look at, the Fred charts, which are what we refer to a lot as far as looking at median home prices and things like that over the course since the 1960s, we have continued to go up in price, even when people bought at the peak, right? The peak market. But I think what the opportunities are right now is that you might be able to buy a house. And when I'm talking about house prices, as far as repairs and things like that going up, I think you may be able to get a house right now and get a lot of these upgrades and repairs paid for by the seller. So I think that, prices, it's relative, because if you take a $450,000 house and you buy it for, let's just say $390, you get $60,000 off. but you spend $200,000 getting it to where you want it to be, in my opinion, you're still overpriced, right? So you've just got a good deal on the buy, but what's important to you now, all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, well now you overspent. So I think that, what I'm telling my buyers right now is make a list of your must-haves. I'm saying absolutely buy. If you want to buy right now, let's find a deal. Let's find what you're looking for. Let's go for it. Let's zoom in. Let's focus on the must-haves. Let's look for deals. Let's look for opportunities. And then let's make sellers pay for these things that are broken.
Right.
Let's make sellers pay for these things, through negotiations, or guess what? You're not going to buy it. And we stick to our guns and, we get a good deal. I think it's possible because I do think the timing will be short-lived, like you said. I think no one knows where that bottom is. But, hey, I say, if we can find what you're looking for in the next 2-3 months and we can negotiate a good deal on it, let's say you still overpaid a little bit for it. It's you're going to be a lot less than you would have if you bought it a year ago. I can tell you that.
Right.
A lot better.
One of the things that I want to really knock home with this is that what I'm starting to see as an investor myself and owning apartment complexes and whatnot, what I'm starting to see from other people who own apartment complexes and whatnot is when a individual decides to go into month to month, right? The month to month rent changes dramatically. We know that taxes are going up. Taxes went up on me. So where does that transfer to? Who do you believe that taxes, insurance, higher cost and mortgage is going to transfer over to? And we've been seeing rent increasing. And what ends up happening to a lot of the tenants is, you either have to pay that month to month, and your month may go up $100 this month, may go up another $100 the next month, and it may continue to go up versus you going ahead and signing that lease right now. Maybe you can't afford that. Maybe that's too much where that month to month doing that type of renting, it will affect you as far as what you can actually put down in a home or affect you in a big financial way. So I that's the reason why I really caution people when it comes to the month to month, because I'm seeing the transfer of expenses being heavily transferred over to tenants. And, and here's the thing that people don't know is a lot of times landlords don't mind you leaving. They don't mind you leaving because actually you could get someone else back in the unit and charge them more. So do you want to, you have to really understand where you are risk wise. Can you afford paying that month to month and possibly it going up on you? Or do you, are you in a situation where you need to be stable and, maybe sign a 6 month instead of a year,
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely an option. I mean, I think that, and they're great points. I think that, a lot, I think what we're going to see is rents going down. I think we're going to see decline in rents. I think it's coming, man.
I do
look,
see.
I think when look, I'm a landlord myself, right?
Yeah.
But I think that what everybody, look, people were just, in a lot of ways, price gouging. Okay. Right. A lot of ways. I mean, when you're looking at $1,700 a month and you're talking about going month to month at $700 more a month, that's ridiculous. Terrible. That is, gouging. That is being greedy at its best. I think this is coming. I think one of the first waves, and look, as far as a multifamily, I've been a multifamily owner myself, and I think that what happens here is we're going to start seeing where, no one wants to drop the rent prices because the comps change. But I think what we're going to see is people giving free months rent, giving a 14 or 15 month lease with 3 months free, trying to hook people, trying to lock them in. But I think, let's say your rent, and I agree with you. If you're looking to buy now, you're ready to buy now, and you're looking to buy now, that's the only way to go month to month. If you think that you're going to buy in 6 months or a year, absolutely negotiate a lease, move move for a cheaper lease if you can find
Right.
a place that, I mean, come on, if you're living in an apartment, it's not going to be, moving is not that big a deal. And if you think it is, wait till you own a home for 10 years. Moving is a real big deal at that point, right? Because we just keep buying stuff. But what I'm saying is, you know, if you're ready to go and your rent goes up $300 a month because you're going month to month, and you know it's 6 months of that, that's $1,800. You know, I would rather somebody pay $1,800 more, because we're going to get it on the buy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're gonna snag it back on the buy. We're going to absorb that back in discount or some kind of concession, you know, in order to kind of absorb that. But that's only if you're ready to buy. Let's talk about some
I think
strategies.
I just wanted to say something there really quick, because we do get emails into the office. And that was one of the questions recently, where someone is waiting, a buyer out of state, out of Maryland, but waiting to purchase, and they're doing a month to month because they feel that they're ready. But they said, you know, they're going to wait for the time is right, where they feel it's the best thing for them. So I think that's excellent advice, Todd, telling them to, you know, go ahead. If you're not truly ready, and you know it's not going to be in the next 30 to 60 days, why not just sign a whole other year lease? Financially, it's going to make more sense for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think in Orlando's point too, I mean, certainly it just depends on your situation, but let's talk about Orlando's some strategies. Let's say, you know, and I know you're saying not to buy right now. I personally think, you know, the sellers are already, man, they're ready to make deals right now. I mean, I think look, it's been enough news where, you know, the marketplace is saying, hey guys, forget about, you already missed the peak. Forget about it. Now it comes down to, because if they're buying a house, and I have a couple of sellers right now that are moving in from out of town, and, you know, they're saying, hey, we've had to drop our prices. We've had to drop, but they're going, but you know what? I think we're going to make it up when we move to Maryland, because what you've been sending me, the price decreases and things like that, and the days on the market, you know, we may be missing, you know, more money on this side, but it's going to help us by taking less money. It's going to help us to get to where we need to go, because some people just have to sell. And what's going to happen is, as a buyer, being ready, being qualified, having cash, you know, for your down payment, and, you know, being in a good position, even though you may get cash, you're still going to be in a lot better position than you were just 3 or 4 months ago. But Orlando, you know, if somebody had to buy right now, what would be some of the things that you would tell them to do and to look for?
Yeah, I would say obviously look for things like, how long has a property been on the market? Do you see any, you know, price cuts? You know, try to, you know, look at things of like, you know, some of the times you go into these homes and everybody wants everything. They want everything brand new. You just kind of look at the inside and see if things are kind of worn, see which type of concessions you can get for that, you know. And if you've been looking at the market, you've seen houses sell, you've seen price cuts happen. So I would say, you know, look at those type of things so that you know exactly how to approach going to buy the home that you want. You know, you have to go in with that ammunition. You can't go in blindly. That's like I feel like that's the worst advice, is trying to just jump into this market and just think that, oh, whatever I ask them for, they're going to give it to me. You have to go in prepared.
Yeah, great advice. And to that point, you know, look for houses that are already set up the way that you need them to be. You know, a lot of people, they want an open floor plan. So they think that, you know, they'll open up walls and things like that. Well, when you are paying, maybe you're not going to time the market to where you get the bottom price. But one of the things that you can do is say, you know, what is it that this house offers that we don't have to do to make it the way that we want it? Because like I said, you know, a lot of times people, they just go off of the price of the house, but they don't realize that it still doesn't check their needs. It still doesn't check the boxes as far as what they need in a house. And like a basement being finished, you know, that is a big savings. You know, if there's a house with a basement, a lot of states, you don't have basements. You may not even know what they are. They're underground living areas. We have them here in Maryland. If you don't have them, you know, people don't want the house in a lot of cases. The alternative is on a slab or a crawl space, you know, flat on the ground, or some type of crawl space underneath the house. But, look for houses that, cosmetics or updates may be the only thing that you need. And then during those home inspections, get a home inspection, make sure that you have a very top-notch home inspector that will look at the place and say, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, that needs to be done. Stay away. I'm going to tell you guys my opinion on something. And again, if you're represented by an agent, lean on your agent. But I'm going to tell you my opinion when I'm talking with buyers is don't go in with an as-is inspection with a right to terminate. Okay? Because what that does is, and a lot of people, you may not know what that is, and maybe your state has a different form for it. Maybe it's just a contingency period, but you want the sellers to know that you want the house and you don't want to just walk away after inspection. You want to give them the opportunity to say, hey, we'll fix that, or hey, we'll give you money towards that, or credit towards that. The other big thing is you need an agent that's going to communicate with the other side, because we need to ask questions now that may, have not been asked in 2 years. So we need to re-educate some of these listing agents, hey, you need to answer these questions because my buyer wants to know. And you can't just say, look, we're a living, breathing, ready, body, willing and able buyer here to jump into this house. So they're not going to, if the agent's like, I'm not going to tell you any of this, or not going to ask the seller that, or that's ridiculous or whatever. We want to know, have you had offers? House has been on the market for 30 days. Have you turned down any offers? Has it gone back on the market? Were there any home inspections that were done? Was there anything that was discovered that wasn't fixed? You've got to dive in and start asking these questions. Look, they say, well, confidentiality is they can't give up the motivation of the seller. Well, hey, I want to know how bad they want to sell.
Right.
Do they need to sell? Are they buying something else? What's their time frame? Answering a series of questions, if we can penetrate that listing agent and get to the seller and ask these questions, critical questions, those answers that we get back are going to be key on your offer and, and your ability to really get the best deal that you possibly can. Orlando, anything to add to that?
No, I think in that aspect that you hit it right on the nail on the head. And so, yeah, I think that's perfect.
Where do you see interest rates heading?
Well, I've been pulling towards that 7%, 8% area that I think we're going to get to. And I still believe that we're going to go in that direction. So, yeah, that 7 to 8% is where I'm really seeing things being pushed. And I'm just very curious to know where inflation is going to be when the new numbers come out. The Fed is just really pushing, saying, we want inflation to get down to 2-3%. We want it down. And last time we looked, it was 8.5, that CPI report. Who knows what it really is when you take all that other stuff out. But I just really think they're gonna continue to raise rates. They're being aggressive with it. So the more aggressive they are, the higher rates will be. And the market is really showing that now.
I think Jerome Powell, yeah, he was very, I think in the last meeting that he had in Jackson Hole, which was just a couple of weeks ago, I think it was maybe, I don't know, August 26th or something. He basically said that there would be, not quoting him, but he had said that there was going to be some kind of heartache or some kind of, reckoning, so to speak, of what needs to be done to get things in check. I find it interesting that they say that it's their responsibility to control pricing, to make sure that affordability is there. I just find that, that blows my mind. I think the Fed should have started raising rates last year. I can't believe that we let this get to where it is right now. I mean, who knows, what's going to happen, but what I think is going to happen, and you and I both have been in commercial real estate, and you have a designation, which is a good designation, CCIM. I mean, you had a lot of schooling and passed a very, vigorous exam to get that designation of CCIM. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, you can look it up, but it's a certified commercial investment member. And basically it's a, it is a bunch of schooling classes that go over, how to financially analyze real estate and, for investment purpose. And, and I've been involved in a lot of, um, commercial real estate in a lot of aspects, as far as, international council, shopping center owners, and, BOMA, Building Owners and Managers Association, all these different, designations or associations that kind of predict where things are going. And of course, everybody has economists and, is trying to figure out what's going to happen next. But let me tell you something. Before the pandemic, we were headed into a round of automation that was slated to reduce jobs, to reduce workforce, like something we've never seen before. And from somebody that is in their 50s, me, remembering when introduction to data processing was in school, and it wasn't that far off. And YouTube, look, 2005, YouTube was created, I believe. And when we look at, how young these platforms are, probably 80%, if not more, of the technologies that we'll be implementing in the next 5 years haven't even been invented yet. So I think as we start to see things accelerate, to Travis's point, what's the time frame of things with the internet? We're seeing things much quicker, much faster, things like that.
Sure.
But what I'm thinking, what I'm concerned about is that these businesses, and it's already a lot of news articles on it. All you have to do is Google it. Automation, workforce reduction, how companies are preparing right now to use robotics and things to eliminate our jobs. And, I was at a convention not that long ago for the down in Nashville, Tennessee, before the pandemic. I think it was in 2017. And it was the Internet of Things. And they were talking about some of the things that were happening. Offices getting smaller, companies downsizing, using subcontractors. So I think that the bigger picture is in buying, how stable is your job? Are you just graduating? Where is your career taking you? Are you prepared to start your own business as a subcontractor? Because that may be what you're forced to do. And if you do that, I can tell you as a business owner, you may not want to buy now, right? You may want to just continue to rent or live at home, stabilize your income before anything else. Orlando?
And I agree with that. I've done videos where I've told people that it's just not about can you afford the home right now. You see that what's happening with the recession, and is your job stable? I had someone who wanted to buy a home. They were like, Orlando, I was going to buy a home, and they DM'd me on Instagram and they told me, I went ahead and I bought a home that I thought that was great. I loved it. I wanted it. I did over asking by $40,000, $50,000, and they lost their job because they were at Ford. That big wave of Ford making, firing people. They were on that list. And now that individual has to try to find a job, and he or she doesn't know what they're going to do. How can I afford this home anymore? But they were on, but here's the thing that I was saying, and it's no, it's not against the individual, but, we saw this news happening of that automation that you were saying, where companies are deciding to get away from the gas, fossil fuel, and they're going to EV and things of that nature. And the department that she got pushed away from is the fossil fuel department, because they're going towards EV. And you see all of these elements happening. And I try to let people know that, hey, you have to make sure that your job is stable. Do you see your job going to automation? Is your job getting canceled out because of innovation and technology? Where do you see yourself when it comes to your job stability before you go ahead and make that jump?
100%. Melissa, let's answer some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this one's a good one, because where's the housing inventory? Where is it? Where's all the housing inventory? Where is it coming from? When are we going to have it?
Orlando, foreclosures coming?
Yeah, I think we are starting to see there's I feel like there's multiple avenues, right? We have the first avenue. I just did a video on property taxes. We're starting to see seniors that have stable income, or income that's not going up or down. It's the same. They're getting Social Security and whatnot, and their taxes are going up. And some of these seniors don't have mortgages, but they can't come up with the increased property tax money. So what are they going to do? Are they going to decide to refinance their home, to pull cash out, to pay a higher interest rate than they would like to pay, which puts them more in debt because they probably can't afford it anyway? Because if they can't afford to pay the new property tax amount, what makes you think they will be able to afford the monthly? Now we're financing property tax to pay your property taxes. We're starting to see things like that come out. We're starting to see individuals, like I just said previously before, that did not expect things to double up on them. They property taxes, insurance, things, cost of fixing things inside of the home, appliances, flooring, landscaping, all of these things. They did not expect these things to happen. And a lot of people are taking a lot of debt out. I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but people taking on debt is increasing.
People are financing their groceries, man.
Right.
They're putting it on credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting because, and again, this is just, I have no crystal ball, but these are just being in the business for so long and watching what's been happening. I have some thoughts, and I think with inventory, foreclosures haven't happened. And,
Right.
I've spoke about it on prior videos. I mean, the Biden signed in the end of July in 21, I think the American Rescue Bill, which basically has still been propping up and, people that are unable to make housing type of expenses, taxes, insurance, mortgage payments, things like that. They have to be homeowners to get it. But I think what we've seen is Wall Street, when the pilot program that, the administration during the great recession that we had, the housing crash that people say in 2008, in 2011, 2012, Wall Street was buying up these, portfolios of loans to try and prevent the neighborhoods. The government didn't, they were seeing hundreds of thousands of foreclosures, and the grass is, grass is not getting cut, and the board ups, and it was like, where's the end in sight? So they basically fed these foreclosures literally to Wall Street investors and companies that bought them up with the fact that they had to turn them into rentals. So I think that absorbed a lot of the inventory and caused a lot of people to rent. And, multifamily building has been out of control. I mean, when you look at the amount of multifamily housing, I mean, look at the universities alone, the money that they put in around these universities for student housing. And now we have students going to college, online more than ever. So I think, we are going to have a glut of multifamily housing. It's not a space that I would want to be in right now, because I think there's going to be a lot of downward price pressure on multifamily housing. Cranes are still being utilized everywhere. I've been to a lot of major cities in the past couple of years, and I see these big cranes and building these multifamily buildings. But I think, we're going to see where Wall Street's going to start unloading some of these houses. I believe it. They have to return profits to their investors. They're going to wipe some out, probably. They're going to liquidate some of their assets, some of their better assets, to try and create cash. I think a lot of people were thinking, why do I want to invest in real estate right now? I mean, where come on, you're going to sign up to turn your checks over to, REITs and things like that are buying up real estate at this point, or you're going to wait and see what happens? I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor. I see there has been a record-breaking amount of people that buy houses as single occupants in a house. I think we're going to see an end to a lot of that. And people are like, I can't afford to live here by myself. So they may sell the house and move in with somebody, or they may, whatever, house hack. But some of that inventory may come on the market. How many Airbnbs were purchased in the last couple of years? I mean, out of control number of Airbnbs. Let me
Yep.
tell you, the down pressure on Airbnbs, HOAs don't want them. I mean, these people are buying $700,000-$800,000 houses in communities with homeowner associations, having parties basically next door to residents that paid all this money for the houses, and HOAs are rewriting their documents. You're seeing municipalities, government, counties, cities say you can't have Airbnbs anymore unless you live there. You just can't buy a house, and you just can't.
Mhm.
So what are you going to do? You're going to live in 3 houses that you own, or 7 Airbnbs that you just created. So I think we're going to see a wave of Airbnbs hit the market. And then, finally, second homes, not Airbnb, but as the people are realizing that they don't have as much money as they thought because of the rate of inflation and things costing so much more, I think we're going to see a lot of people selling their second homes. How many people from New York City bought second houses?
Oof.
In Florida?
So
How many snowbirds? I mean, Florida has built up so much. I can remember when the housing crash happened in 2008, there were condominium buildings in Florida that were never lived in Fort Myers, right? Never lived in. They bulldozed them. The black mold was so bad in these places because they never had electricity, or the electricity was cut. They didn't have heating and air systems. They had, wallboard up on the walls. They tore them down. So, yeah.
And I also think too, just wanted to add, the big flip and fix and flip market. We've seen a lot of mom and pops, people who are just getting into the game of doing it and buying up a lot of properties. And 6 months ago to a year, you could be very bad at doing that, at fix and flipping, and you could still make a profit, but not anymore. So what will those individuals do with holding costs and things being way more expensive to build? Not a lot of these fix and flippers overbuilt, not knowing exactly what's happening in that market, putting the Taj Mahal inside of your fix and flip, and not being able to get that money back. So you're starting to see a lot of these avenues, and Open Door just did that too. They're losing money hand over fist. I did a video about that, of explaining like the actual details of how they're losing money over and over and over, and they're taking out short-term debt, and they're getting hammered.
Oh yeah, 100%. Inventory is going to increase, guys. It's coming. It's coming. Right. It's coming.
How about this? Should you buy down your rate if you plan to keep the home for 10 plus years?
That's your question there, Orlando.
When it comes down to buying rates, it really depends, right? And I think it has to do with the long, like you just said, if you're going to do it for 10 plus years, I can see the savings. You really have to really calculate the savings and when you will make your money back, and then how much money you will save. And here's the thing with buying down rates that I tell you, have to really stick to the plan, because if you don't stick to the plan and you decide you want to get out at year 3 or sell your home at year 3, now you just wasted all that money doing the buy down. So you have to know what the plan is, and you have to stick to it.
How about ARMs? Adjusted rate mortgages. What's your opinion on
that? my thing is this, is that everybody wants to fight me on this adjustable rate, are these ARMs. And for most people, you shouldn't do it. Like, you should not do it. Investors and people who know the game and know exactly what they're doing, have multiple properties, all this other stuff, they play around in that game. But for the everyday person, stay away from the ARMs. You don't know how they work. We saw this in 2008. We saw it in 2008. And everyone's like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll go ahead and take this really cheap. By the time I get around to it, I'll refinance it. Well, what happened? You didn't get a chance to refinance because you were upside down.
I think that was one of the contributing factors. Everybody, and it drives me crazy that people are saying, look, there were a lot of, call them liar loans, no doc loans, what bridge loan. I mean, it goes on and on, right? No doc loans. I mean, there was all kinds of types of loans. A lot of them still exist. I mean, in some form, it's just they're not called maybe the same thing, but they have a program or a whatever, or this lender has something. Maybe they're, and I won't get into a lot of the acronyms, but there are lenders out there that do, more untraditional type of financing. My point is that, there is a way of, things happening. I mean, there are statement loans now where, you don't have to, right? You don't have to give your tax, or what do you have to do, Orlando? Statement loans. You just have to prove you have money in the bank.
Yeah. All you have to do is have money in the bank, and they use your bank statements. They do not use tax returns or anything, no debt to income ratios. It's just about how much money monthly you have coming into your account. And that determines if you can afford the purchase of the home or property.
Yeah. And so a lot of these
Sounds
things,
crazy, right?
Yeah, but when people say, well, we don't have the kind of loans that we had before, look, I just want to say one thing, guys. If people can't pay their mortgage, it doesn't matter what kind of mortgage they have. Right? If they lose, whatever the case is, so when people are saying we won't see another '08 because we don't have those types of mortgages or we have more equity, that equity gets gobbled up very quickly when somebody is in trouble. Because what happens is they stay in it as long as they can. They don't fix anything. It goes down the tubes. It needs a roof. It needs this. It needs that. And the equity is gone in a lot of cases. They're not quick to just let their home go because they're thinking about the equity in the home. They're thinking about a roof over their head. And right now they have one, whether they're paying for it or not, it's still over their head. And they'll wait until they get kicked out in most cases. DT, we appreciate you, man. We thank you. Job loss is coming. And look, I don't disagree. I don't want to.
I don't either.
Sound the alarm and sound like, I'm the pessimist. But I think we need to pay attention. A couple more questions, Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that a lot of you have area specific questions, but Todd, Melissa in Orlando, thank you again. How low can we offer on a property that was $500,000 in 2019, and now the asking price is $799 without any major improvement in the house?
Orlando, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the issue with that is that's very vague, and it may not sound vague to the caller here, but it's very vague. There's a lot of things that determine that. I mean, even though they bought it, it was listed at 500,000 in 2019. What has happened in that neighborhood? What has happened in that market? When individuals say no improvements have been made, I don't know if it's improvements that you don't like or or if it's just improvements that you really don't count or what the scenario is. So it's very hard for me to answer that question. But this is what I would say. I would say follow the trends of what's going on in that neighborhood now. Look at the comparables. Look at things that have sold recently in that neighborhood, in that market, and then give it your best shot. I mean, all they can say is no. If you work with a great realtor or someone who's willing to go to bat for you, you can put in multiple offers. Or if they say no, then you move up. You have to really, kind of figure out where you can make that offer. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great opinion. I think, look, 3 to 5% has been the average appreciation, annual appreciation for housing in the past. So obviously we are so far out of whack from that. And I think this is the big question, So, but if you think, if you look and you say, we could see the pictures of the house and there has been no apparent upgrades, I always like to ask the agent, what has been done since they bought that house for $500,000? What have they done? I mean, justify it to me. I'm having a hard time with this. The other thing is, so I think, the difference between everything is 2 or 3 questions away from a decision. So if you ask the right questions, if you strategize and ask the right questions, you will not be far from making a decision. And, so you have to put it into perspective. So when you're questioning that, if you don't ask that question, I mean, it's a valid question. How did we get to where we are right now? Because now, I mean, we all know that the word on the street is that things have been overpriced. So if we're looking at something, and I think it was 2019, so what we're talking about here is 3 years ago, right? and now it's 800,000. How long has it been on the market? Has it been off the market? Look at Zillow, look at realtor.com. You can go into the property history and you can see the activity back on the market, withdrawn off the market. It's going to tell you a lot of the story. And then one of the best things that I like more than anything is, hey, you know what? I'd really like to buy your house. It checks the boxes for me, but I can't give you what you want. And then what's coming next? Well, what were you going to give? Right? I mean, remember, guys, these listing agents they don't make money unless they sell something, right? I mean, I think there may be a couple salaried companies out there, but if they don't sell anything, they may not keep their salaries very long. I mean, who knows, right? But if you're asking a critical question, you're going, look, I really like that house, but I'm sorry, I can't, so I'm the agent, the buyer's agent would say, look, my buyer really likes this house, but they can't give them what they're looking for. What is it? Well, it may be insulting to your sellers. Hey, just give it to me. All right, let's give it to you.
Right.
They could give you that price less $100,000. How does that sound? Oh, that's ridiculous. Well, the agent's telling you it's ridiculous, but the seller may not. Right? The seller may be in a completely different spot. So, you deal with people that have estates, mom or dad passed. You've got 3 family members over 3 different states. They all look at it and they go, $100,000 is not that much divided by 4 people, $25,000. I'd rather have my money today than know where it may be 6 months from now. Right. Yeah. So you never know. You don't know until you ask. And I say ask. And
always. Yeah,
get shot down. My mom used to say nothing beats a try but a failure.
And I always tell people your situation isn't everyone else's situation. So, if you go ahead and you're looking for a home, you're trying to look at, that may not be the situation. Like you said, it may be an estate sale. It may be a scenario where someone has to move. Maybe they're a military member and they're just saying, I got to get out of here. I have to sell it because I have to go to my next phase. You never know what the scenario may be. So I think it's always best to go ahead and put in that offer and go ahead and say, hey, look, this is my offer. This is what I'm willing to pay, and just kind of see where it goes from there.
And the other thing I'd like to add, Orlando, to that is, how does it price in the neighborhood? Because, and you said that, is it the biggest house in the neighborhood? Right. Because if it's the biggest house in the neighborhood, the rest of the properties in a time like what we're about to go through, or right now, and we're going to hit more of a traditional market. I don't think we're going to see the runaway train again. So I think that, when we look at real estate values, if you're the most expensive house in the neighborhood, even though the square footage may be 3 times as much as the average house, and they may need to go a street or 2 down to comp it, to see that it's worth what it is. And it may comp, but the idea is in that neighborhood, those less expensive, smaller houses are always going to continue to pull the value of yours down. So you have to consider that. And the exact opposite is true. If you're in a really big home neighborhood, and this is a house that's half the square footage, and everybody else is selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars more, they will continue to pull your property value up.
I agree.
Anything else, Melissa? Some final comments here before we questions?
Let's just talk about this really quickly, because we've seen this, and it wasn't 200,000. It was a lot more than that. Who buys a $200,000 home without even looking at the property? Insanity from pandemic and buyer remorse is sleepless nights for some.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that the no inspections. Some lenders, believe it or not, some lenders are foregoing appraisals. They're just doing the desktop stuff, so it's happening. And yes, I mean, it's when you have the demand, right, and the supply is low, that's what happens. And then people are flush with cash because we're coming out of this pandemic and we've been, given a lot of money by the government. That's what happens. People's savings account were full 4 months worth of money in their bank accounts, and I mean, that's what happens. That's just,
yeah. Orlando, man, you know I love you. I love your channel. I mean, look, I'm so honored that you jumped on here with us, man.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you know, my challenging you a little bit, you know, it was all done
Oh,
in
no.
all in the best of spirits, man, best of friends. I do have a big
I love
question
the
for you,
challenge,
though.
man. I love it. I love
I
it.
do have a big question for you, though.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of guys, they're afraid to answer this question. And I don't know
Yeah.
why. He's going, oh, man, here we go. We're talking about buyers, whether you should buy a house right now. And, you know, one of the things that, and there are a lot of lenders that say, you know what, charge, let's go, let's go, let's go. I mean, whoever
Right.
thought that debt was a good thing for us? I mean,
Right.
it's crazy, right? I mean, back in the day, this is nuts. Back in the day, I mean, early on when we first started migrating to the US and buying properties, right? Long time ago, I mean, mortgages were like a couple years. You'd finance a house for like 2 years and it'd be interest only. And then they found out, wow, that's no good because they couldn't pay it in 2 years. They couldn't pay their house off. But, you know, we've gone from, you know, 20% is a good price to put down, you know, to now 3.5%. And now we don't need any money in some cases when we're dealing with VA and, you know, we're dealing with things like, you know, seller concessions. So we can say, look, we don't have any cash. How much cash do you think that someone should have as far as months of supply to pay their bills, to keep their head afloat? Should they lose their job, you know, buy groceries, pay for their house? How many months of money in the bank paying the bills should somebody have before they buy a house? And, or after they pay for their down payment? I'm talking about leftover in the bank.
Yeah, I'm really big on 7 to 8 months. That's really my view. I know a lot of people hear that 7 to 8 months and they think, "Oh man, that's crazy. That I can't afford that." And I think that's the issue right there. Is that most people think to themselves that's such a crazy amount that I cannot save that amount of money. But what ends up happening in that scenario is that we do know this you will be in a scenario where an emergency will happen and you will have to fix something, pay for something. And the question is will you have the money to do that? Or will you have to go get a personal loan, put it on the credit card? What will you have to do to make that happen and then fix that item, which puts you in more debt, more debt, more debt, and you've already got this big mortgage. So I'm really big on that 7 to 8 months.
You know what? I think that's great advice. I think, guys, you should have cash in the bank, and you'd be surprised that most Americans don't have $5,000 in their bank account and they want to buy. And I can't, you know, you can get grant money out there. There are things that you can do to help down payment and things like that. But guys, we spend too much time thinking that we're never going to have a downturn, that we're not going to go through anything, you know, challenging. And I can tell you that we look back in the history of our economy, and there has been recessions, depressions, panics. They were known as panics early on, early 1900s. And then now, as we know, pandemics, and we see what can happen. You can't rely on the government to continue to print money. We've got to start taking responsibility for ourselves. Orlando, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Todd, for allowing me to come on your platform. I really appreciate you, Melissa, too. I appreciate you guys both allowing me to come on here. It's been a pleasure.
And guys, if you like this video, you can let Orlando, Melissa, and myself know by hitting that thumbs up. It will let us know that we delivered something valuable to you guys. And cruise on over to Orlando's channel. Give him a subscribe. And if you haven't done so to Sachs Realty, we would love it. Subscribe to our channel. You'll know every time that we post content. Right now, we're posting our Tuesday night podcast, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And then we also post on Thursdays and Saturdays. So, guys, we hope to see you again. Until next time.
See you
Have a great
then.
night. Okay.